In this week's video, I want to talk about the art of dying. And what I mean by that is the art of learning how to let go of your ego, to slowly start to dismantle this personal self that we've all been so conditioned to identify with. This video is really for those of you who have already begun this process. It's a way for you to better understand what's actually happening to you. I'll begin to take you through these key markers that are probably going to be slightly different for each of you, but at least you'll be able to recognize what they are. And if they've already come, it will be very validating. And if they haven't, it will be something that you can look forward to. But before I begin, if at any point you find that this information is helpful, then please like and subscribe so more people can watch this video. Entering the abyss. There comes a time in everyone's evolution when they decide to return home. And by that, I mean they decide to go inward and start looking within themselves for the answers. I think it's safe to say that most people on the planet are still looking outside of themselves to solve their problems. This inward journey may begin just as a curiosity, but once you start to discover that there's an entire universe inside of you, you begin to pass the mark of curiosity and start to enter into this abyss, this unknown reality that lies within you. Once you realize that there is so much to discover within yourself, then the commitment comes naturally. Straddling both worlds. I think one of the biggest misperceptions that people have when it comes to living a spiritual life is that it means that you need to renounce everything, that you need to go sit up in a cave on the top of a mountain somewhere and completely lose sight of your human existence. And that is not at all what is needed. What is needed is that we begin to find this beautiful balance between our worldly life, our human experience, and our inner life, our spiritual experience. Because in reality, unless that balance is found, there really is no point for us to be here. There's no point to live this worldly life without having that understanding of God and divinity. And there's no point of being here in a human body in this form if we're not going to experience all of that fully. So it's really this beautiful balance between both of these worlds. It's being in the world, but not of it. The more and more you begin to do that, the richer your life becomes, the richer your spiritual life becomes, because you get to share that with everyone. And you begin to realize, again, the temporariness of life, the preciousness of life, and the preciousness of everything around you, because God is everywhere. Divinity is in everything. So there's no need to renounce any of it. The key is not to identify with it, not to become attached to all of these things that we have, these things that we think that we are. The first sign of losing yourself. When you begin to meditate for longer and longer periods of time, you begin to lose this sense of having a body. And when that happens, you start to wonder what it is that you actually are. That understanding that comes when you realize that you exist and yet you don't feel like yourself, because you don't really feel like a body. You're in this inner space. You've closed your eyes. Your ability to see is completely shut off. And so you lose this sense of you as you know it. Really great thing that you can begin to do is to even start saying things like this body in reference to what you thought was your body. You can say things like, I really need to exercise this body. I really need to feed this body. And this doesn't mean that you have to dissociate from your body, but it is a way for you to stop identifying so strongly with your body, as if your body is what you are, because it's not. Refer to your body as an it, as this or that, as opposed to me or my body. My body hurts. My elbow hurts. This elbow hurts. This body hurts. The Witness Protection Program. Sometimes I joke around with my friends and family, and I tell them to enter the Witness Protection Program. And by that, I mean, enter this state of becoming the witness. There's nothing more protective when it comes to not feeling any suffering, right? There's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is something that happens in the moment. Suffering is what we continue to add to on top of that pain. When you enter this witness protection program, you're not identifying with this pain that you're feeling. There is no suffering that occurs when you do that. And becoming the witness simply means that you are watching everything that's happening. You are not allowing yourself, you're not allowing the energy within you to run through these images that you're having. You're having all sorts of pictures and images, and the more and more you identify with these pictures and images and emotions, and you put your energy into them, the more pain and suffering you're going to feel. It's like sitting in the driver's seat, because then you have control of the car, as opposed to sitting in the back seat with this car barreling down the freeway at 70 miles an hour. When you sit in the driver's seat, you are the one that gets to decide because you're conscious. You're not unconscious when you're in the driver's seat. When you're conscious, you get to decide how you want to relate to life instead of reacting to life. It starts to get disturbing. Once you start to practice becoming the witness, or once you enter into the witness protection program, and you do it regularly, you start to feel that your life becomes very, very weird. Things almost become a little disturbing. And that's because you realize that you're just this energy, this awareness that's watching everything. You start to notice that all the people around you are not aware that that is actually what's going on, that there's this witnesser within you, there's this watcher. You start to wonder if anybody else has also experienced this. And obviously they have. But I'm just trying to take you through the steps of what actually starts to happen when you experience this stuff for yourself. You realize that your life was not at all what you thought it was. You were living this regular, typical, or maybe not so typical life, and you were very much identified with your body, with all of these things that had happened to you, all of these events, all these memories that you carry with you. And the more and more you begin to observe and just watch all of it, the less you identify with it. Then you start to think, well, what am I? And what's happening? And what does all of this mean? And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to any of those questions. The more and more I dive into this abyss that is within me, the more I realize that I know absolutely nothing. I have no idea what any of this is for. But I do have these experiences, and I do know that none of this is what we think it is. A taste of liberation. Just to recap, we started with this understanding that a commitment needs to take place as to journeying within, as to discovering what's inside of you. You start to encounter these moments with others when you're relating to other people, or it could be when you're experiencing an event. And what happens is you begin to feel this incredible freedom because you're not thinking of yourself the way that you used to. You're not thinking of yourself as this personal self. In other words, you've lost yourself. You've lost this idea of being you. And you have this understanding now that you, the personal you, doesn't really matter anymore because you're not what you thought that you were. And the more you begin to relate to life in that way, the more free you become. You're not worried about you anymore. You're not worried about what's going to happen to you. And what does that person think about you? Or where is my career headed? Or any of it. You're simply not worrying about any of it. You are just experiencing the moment that's right in front of you. And it's extremely liberating. The less that you care about yourself, and by no means do I mean that you stop taking care of this body that you're in, that you get to communicate to the world with. What I mean is that you're just not living in a state of feeling vulnerable. You're not living in a state of fear. you are living in that state of freedom, of liberation. And that's what begins to happen when you lose yourself, when you lose this egoic self, when you lose the identification with your body, with your thoughts, with all of the things that you think are happening to you. And you sit with this witness consciousness, you sit with your true self. Life becomes very, very exciting when you sit in that seat. When you lose yourself, you begin to realize how beautifully bizarre all of this is, how strange all of it is. Think about it. Think about how strange it is that I get to sit here and put my face in front of this thing that we call a microphone. And then there's this thing, this camera that's recording me. And I'm sitting in what we call a room surrounded by air in this physical body that isn't even me. And it's so strange. Everything is bizarre. All of this is so weird. Life is a trip. So wake up, start noticing all of it. Stop getting so consumed by all of these inner wants and desires and needs and this personal self, because that's what's stopping you from experiencing what's right in front of you. Your personal self, your ego, is what consumes all of your energy. It takes all of the energy in your brain and it eats it all up because it is so hungry for love. It is so hungry for attention. It wants to feel real. It wants to feel heard and seen. And it does that by perpetually creating this mind chatter. The more and more you quiet your mind through meditation, and then the more and more you become the witness to all of the experiences that you're having, the more and more you begin to lose your egoic self. More awareness, anyone? Your true self is awareness. So you can never be short on awareness. We are always aware of something. The question is, where are you focusing that awareness? Are you focusing it on your mind, on your thoughts, on your thinking, on identifying with those thoughts, on identifying with your emotions? Or are you taking that awareness and are you focusing it on itself? And that's the point of meditation, is to commune with God, with that consciousness, with that awareness. And when you put that awareness on itself by going inward and trying to do that as well throughout your physical daily life, then you begin to live a life that is very, very conscious. And that conscious way of living is what's going to liberate you. It is the very thing that is going to take you out of identification with your egoic personal self and into the realm, the sea of the infinite, of divinity, of losing yourself and gaining your true self. Because in fact, it's always there. There's never a moment that you are not with divinity, that you are not part of God, that God is not with you at all times. It is omnipresent. It is everywhere. But when we take that beautiful, precious awareness and we focus it on our personal selves, on these things that we have identified with that aren't really what we are, then we lose sight of the truth. We lose sight of the divinity that is all around us. I love you all so much. Until next time, remember to let go. Let go of trying to be anything other than the truth of what you are.